Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of the Royal We. And we are getting started right now. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes here for a lot of the members to sign on. I hope you guys are doing good tonight, doing good this evening. It is Monday night, so it is the Royal We Live. Hey, Taylor Zabel, already here. How are you? Hi, Tanya. How are you doing? Hello. How is everybody? It's good to see you guys here. I'm going to let the music play for just a little bit before we get into tonight's show. Hi, Susan. How are you doing? It's good to see you guys. I'm so glad that you guys are all here. I'm going to go ahead and do a transition so we can see everybody that's popping on. There's everybody. Sometimes it takes a while, I know, and that's okay. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday so far. Third to like. Hey, D, how are you? Hi, Heather. Niagara Falls, Ontario. Thank you so much for being here. KK Bootsy, good evening. Wendy G, hi, how are you? Carol Peterson, how are you? Having a great day. Good. We are the frosting on the cake. I like that. I'll take that. Jamie, hi, how are you doing? Kimberly Kolb, how are you? Glenda Fry, how are you? Wonders in the Wasteland. Katie and Adam, both of you guys here tonight? I hope so. That is awesome. I'm going to be sure to put the telephone number up in just a little bit, guys, so you can call in whenever you want to call in tonight. I hope to hear from some of you guys with some great questions and some great ideas and concepts and situations that will heal not only you, but heal everybody in the community. And good. I'm glad that you guys will be calling. And I look forward to that discussion with you guys and what it is that you guys have to share. Mike Smith, what's going on? It's good to see you. I have some exciting news for you guys as well. I am super excited about the news that I'm going to be sharing with you and the things that are going on. And you got notifications in YouTube? Good. Hey, what's up, Apasta Babe? It's good to see you guys. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, guys. We're 2 minutes in. Thank you so much for being a part of the Royal We Live, guys. This is the Royal We community. This is all for you. This is all about healing. This is all about talking about recovering and healing from narcissistic abuse, friends, families, coworkers, with any type of stressful and traumatic situations. This is the place to be. This is where we find amazing healing. The community here is for you guys. There's Blue. Good evening. How are you doing, Blue? And so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a couple of announcements before we do get into the telephone calls and the topic for tonight. The topic of tonight is going to follow the last video that was uploaded on Friday. We're going to be talking about the prayers that work. And for those of you that have already seen the video on the prayers that work, it's based out of the biblical principles and the context of King David. That's not what I wanted to put up there. I'm sorry about that, but we're going to get to that. But we are going to be talking, wrong slide. We're going to be talking about prayers that work based out of the biblical principles of King David and King Saul. Most people know King David in relationship to his taking out of Goliath. And that's what he's known for. That's what made him the hero and the champion. And however, I made the case that in actually studying the story, there's a whole story of narcissistic abuse that took place there between King David and the king before him, King Saul, the very person who he honored, he served, he loved, and who he took Goliath out for. And he was very confused, and he spent over 14 chapters before King David was king in isolation, in pain, in suffering, in misery, and not knowing why the king who he served was out to try to get him and take him down, assassinate his character, trying to just get rid of him altogether, tried to kill him on multiple occasions. Talk about frustrating, painful. King David did not understand it. And I knew that resembles a lot of where you and I are at. We don't understand the hatred and the animosity. However, we get a glimpse into why this takes place. So we're going to be talking about that. Before we get into that, a couple of quick announcements, though. If you guys are new to the Royal We live stream, go ahead and make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, because you will not know about the live stream when it's on unless you hit the notification. Last but not least, this is all about connection. This community is here for you. This is your healing time. This is your night. This is where you get to vent. This is where you get to speak out and speak up, ask your questions, talk about your situation, cleanse yourself in the Royal We community that is here, that is rallying together, that is gathered here for you. And now, guys, a big announcement. I do have a brand new membership account. Now, this is huge, guys. But right before we get into the topic, this is huge. The membership account is on Patreon, and the Patreon name is Join the Royal We. There is a link right down below in the description box of this video, and it will always be there. Now, you guys are the foundation of the next phase of the Royal We. The purpose of having a Patreon account and a membership account is to take the Royal We to the next level. As most of you are aware, this is the second time going into the live stream, and we're doing it once a week. When I went into the live stream before, I went 5 nights a week. I attacked it head on for you guys as if it was a full-time responsibility, because that's how seriously I take your healing and your recovery and this need for coming out of narcissistic abuse. And what happened is I just collapsed. It fell down because I was not prepared. It was not founded on anything. It was not funded. There was no resources available for it. And it caused everything to suffer, including my day job that I have, my family time. It really took a lot and exhausted. Not only that, but YouTube was almost punishing the live stream, which is why it's on its own channel now. YouTube does not like having hour-long live stream videos where people watch a little bit of it and then maybe click off. They start to punish channels for things like that, and I was severely being punished. So there was a lot going on that had to bring it to a sudden stop, okay? So we did bring it back, but now it's going to count on you guys to keep it going. And I am excited to offer the membership program. The membership program on the Patreon account is for that. What the purpose is for you to be able to provide that foundation, right? The Royal We is a calling, and the Royal We's calling is not going to be met until there is the calling. We know what the calling is to save lives. The gifting is to be able to reach out, to communicate, videos, conversations, all kinds of stuff. However, there's an aspect of the foundation which is needed, the support that is needed. This is where Patreon fits in, and it offers that. So in Patreon, which works a little bit different, you have access to unique things. As a matter of fact, today I uploaded my very first Patreon video, which I want to do daily activities there. And it's actually a recipe for a adrenal cocktail. And the adrenal cocktail is something that I have been doing for a long time. It's something I don't talk about. It's something that I wouldn't really put on the Royal We channel. This is something that I believe would work great in exclusive settings like the gathering place of the membership. And the adrenal cocktail, I talk all about it. I give the recipe, and it's basically a drink that you can make. I've been taking it for a long time that helps to support your adrenal glands coming out of narcissistic abuse, any type of traumatic experiences. Your adrenals are weakened. Stress, anxiety, panic attacks, all that stuff. So you're going to get a lot of that stuff by becoming a member of the gathering in the Royal We family. So I'm going to talk more about that later, because I know we have a lot to talk about and get into phone calls. But I encourage you to at least check out the Patreon membership account, especially you guys. This channel is for you. This live stream is for you. This channel is not monetized. This is your community. So go and check out the Patreon account. Become a member there as well. The goal is, with 300 of you, just 300 of you becoming members, I will bring back this live stream on a nightly basis, Monday through Friday. All it takes is it's just 300 at you at just a minimal amount of support. I believe it's set at $20 a month. Guys, you spend more than that on coffee every week, okay? So if just that a month will be able to start to build a foundation, that will start to build the calling. This is where we're going to find out what the calling of the Royal We really is. We're going to find the calling of the Royal We as a community, as a voice. And so I put the Patreon there to see this happen. I really want to be here going every single night. I have this dream and the ambition to do so. I would walk away from my day job tomorrow if I could to spend 24 hours a day providing resources for you. But it has to be made happen. It has to be founded. That's the purpose of Patreon. Patreon fills in that gap. I'm excited about it. And I got to give Blue a hand because she's the one that really pushed me and urged me after everything happened with YouTube. She pushed me to go the route of Patreon. So you'll probably hear from her too, saying, go and check it out, become a member. And guys, you will not be disappointed. You're going to get a lot of great things in the membership. It's going to be different videos. Like I said, adrenal cocktail recipes for healing. It's going to be amazing stuff behind the scenes of the videos that I make for YouTube, content creation, location planning, everything from the writing it out, scripting it out, and you'll have a say. Okay, so it's going to be a great membership. Check it out. Again, the Patreon link is down below in the description box. Let's move on now, guys. I think I beat that pretty badly, but I'm excited about it, as you can obviously tell. So let's move into prayers that work before we start into taking some phone calls. If those of you who saw the video this past Friday, right now the goal is to upload an organic video on Friday, live stream Monday. Wednesday is going to be a highlight reel of the live stream, except for tonight because my camera just crashed out on me, and that's a bummer. But at any rate, guys, let's go ahead and get right into this now. What I talked about on Friday was in response to a video that I posted a week ago in which I talked about how prayer does not change narcissistic abuse. And we know that a lot of you, and myself included, spent time, wasted time, right, with the abusive narcissist under the impression that we can hope for a better relationship. We can pray for a better relationship. And what we're really praying for is we pray that they will start to change. We pray that they will start to be more peaceful. Okay, it doesn't work. Prayer and praying for the abusive narcissist does not work. And I made that case 2 weeks ago because of the simple fact that they're not in agreement with you. Abusive narcissists, whether it's your family, friends, ex-boyfriends, spouse, lovers, whoever you're dealing with, they're not in agreement with your prayer. They're not in agreement with you that they have something they need to fix. They're using you, manipulating you, in control of you. They're in their, if it's a family, it's their hierarchy, and their word is the law. They apologize for nothing. They don't feel they need to. So your prayer becomes ineffective against the will of a narcissistically abusive person. And this is not something I made up. This is actually something that is based in biblical principles. And coming from a place of faith and a background of faith, I fell into that narrative, that script of, well, just pray for people, pray for their peace and blah, blah, blah. Nowhere, we don't see in the Bible that people were necessarily changed. And I'm talking about narcissistically abusive people were changed simply because Christians or people of faith approached them and said, I'm going to pray for you. It doesn't work like that. Yes, there was demons cast out. Yes, these types of things happen. But we see story after story after story, such as the story of Pharaoh and Moses, where Moses needed to go to the Pharaoh and request that the captives be set free. And what happened is Pharaoh's heart became even harder. So when we're dealing with narcissists and this entity of narcissism that is just controlling and is manipulative and has that solid will of, I am right, I do everything right, I don't need to change, there is not a lot of, there's no prayers that you can do, especially if they've picked you out as the enemy. Okay? We also see this in the story of David. Now, this is where I'm going to take up with the next part. Okay? So this past Friday, I did talk about prayers that do work against narcissistic abuse, but it's not in the way you think. It's not changing the abusive narcissist. In the story of King David, obviously, he was a young man who took out a giant, and he did it to serve a king at the time. The king was Saul. And as a result of David taking out Goliath, Saul made him the champion. He was the hero. Of course he was. But then Saul, and the story actually says that Saul became jealous at some point because there was songs being made. You know, the songs back in the day were really silly. Okay, so there was something to the extent of King Saul has had victory over thousands of armies, but King David over tens of thousands of armies. And just that difference started to create this jealousy in Saul. Jealousy, guys, is at the root of narcissistic abuse. Jealousy is at the root of narcissism. And what's interesting about the story is that it says that a evil entity was sent into Saul as a result of his jealousy. It entered into him. And at that moment, King David, the very man that Saul that served Saul and that Saul honored, Saul began to hate with such a passion and for no reason. And it came on suddenly. And Saul started to pursue young David and tried to kill him multiple occasions. And David, what's interesting is he left, says that Saul threw a spear at him, for crying out loud. How many of you guys have had a narcissist throw something at you? I know I have. I was at a party where I shouldn't have been with some, the abusive people, the family that I was hanging out with at the time, my in-laws. One of them got mad at me and threw glasses and drinks at me, just sporadically, just boom, knocked over the drink, threw them on me because she didn't like something that I did. It was really, really wild, and she knew that I couldn't really do anything. I was there in their territory. This is what happens when you're in their territory. David was in King Saul's presence, and he just sporadically chucked a spear at him out of this moment of hatred, okay? But what's interesting is David didn't leave. And as you read it, everything inside of you says, just leave, just go. Get out of there, David. Saul is tripping out. He's full of hatred. You and I, the reader, we get the understanding that an evil spirit has entered Saul. So we're able to see that, and you're wanting to say leave, and you're wondering, why does David keep going back? And then I had to remember, this is narcissistic abuse we're talking about. At the first sign of them throwing something at you, as you and I have learned, it's typically not enough to really get it set in that something's off with these people, right? David experienced the same thing. Okay, Saul threw a spear at me. Well, maybe he was just having a bad night. Maybe, I can almost imagine him justifying what was going on. Well, maybe he was upset. Maybe he didn't like my joke. Maybe he's, I don't know. Okay? And so he stayed in the situation longer because he didn't get it. Just like you and me, we stay in the situation with the abusive narcissist way too long, trying to figure out what's going on. And that was David. Finally, it got so intense. David finally got it. Oh my gosh, this guy's trying to kill me. He is so full of hate and rage and anger. He's trying to kill me. And I believe, based on the stories and how it was 14 chapters long, this became the most painful experience and challenge of David's life. Not taking down Goliath. This made taking down Goliath easy. Taking down Goliath was simple. But the next 14 chapters is him running for his life from a man who he could have beaten up, right? He took down Goliath. He could have easily taken out King Saul, but it was different. One, he honored King Saul because he was the king. Two, he served him, so he had some kind of an adoration or a love for the guy. Three, he was confused as to what was going on, why Saul suddenly hated him, right? This is you and me in narcissistic abuse. One, right? It's not that you and I cannot beat or destroy the narcissist, and I made this point because with some choice words, you could take out the narcissist in your life. If you're dealing with a narcissistic mom or parent or brother or sister, you know you can destroy them with your words. All you'd have to do is go public and say some things on social media, wipe them out, annihilate. You could. I know I could. But there's something holding you back. And it's the same thing that was holding David back from just going ahead and getting rid of the king of King Saul, right? One, it's understanding and that you don't just do that, right? There's a reason he took Goliath out. That was a very specific reason. There was no attachments to that. King Saul was different. King Saul, he honored, he looked up to, he admired, and he was the king, okay? In your situation, you can't just take out and verbally assault and criticize and destroy your family members, friends, coworkers, whatever. You just can't do that. So just like David, you're forced out, and David was purged out into isolation as he ran for his life. It was in this place where he wrote the Psalms, the majority of the Psalms. The Psalms is the largest collection of prayers that we have. And the Psalms are very inspirational. And I broke the Psalms down into 5 main topics. I've looked through all the Psalms, guys, and I realized that they all have basic themes to them. The 5 themes that I talked about in Friday's video. First theme is that of vindication. Oftentimes it's the prayer of search me, make sure I'm okay, make sure my heart is okay. The second is that of mercy. Oftentimes, you will hear in David in the Psalms, he's praying for mercy because he feels so weak. He's so confused because of the narcissistic abuse he's experiencing with Saul. He's so isolated and so purged from where he thought he should be that he was and crying. He was weak. He said, "Have mercy on me. I'm just so weak. I can't even move. How long do I have to go through this? What is this confusion?" Right? So that's mercy that he prayed for. Okay. The third one was for deliverance and protection. This is where David understood that he could not take out Saul and he didn't want to. And so he prayed for deliverance. Protect me under the shadow of your wings. Deliver me from the ones who are trying to chase me, King Saul. And guess what? It happened. He was delivered. He was protected. He didn't have to touch Saul because in his prayer life, and I'm going to explain to you why and why this works in just a moment. But let's go to the next one first. After deliverance is justice. King David prayed for justice. You and I can pray for justice. Forget this whole praying for peace stuff, right? We spent so much time praying for peace with the narcissist. Oh, give him peace and give him love, blah, 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 blah. And failure after failure after failure, and it keeps us in the relationship. It's about time we start praying for justice. Let them have the life that they want to live. Give them the reward that's due them for the way they treat people. You want to know what they deserve for treating people? They deserve you not to be in their life, okay? We're going to get there. We're going to get there. And then the last and final prayer was a lot of exaltation and exaltation. They sound the same. They're different. Exalt with E-X-A-L-T means to exalt something. Then in this case, King David, or David, as before he was king, exalted his belief in God. He lifted him up high. He said, "You are my protector. You are amazing. You are worth fighting for. You are worth all the glory." You, constantly lifting that up. Okay, it's important to understand why he did that. And then exaltation, E-X-U-L-T, is him giving just a joy, having joy because of his victory, having joy because he was safe, having joy because he was protected. Now, what do these prayers have in common? None of them have anything to do with fixing the relationship with Saul. Justice, praying for justice, means I don't want to see him. I don't want to deal with him. You make sure he gets paid and rewarded for how he's treated me. That's all you have to do, okay? Exaltation, this is another important one. Exaltation means you're taking the glory. At one time, David probably gave the glory to Saul because he was the king, which is why he served him. I believe in this time, King David had to draw back and give the glory elsewhere. Take it off of Saul and give it back to what he really believed in. You and I need to do the same thing. When we get out of abusive relationships and toxic relationships, we need to check and make sure we're not over-glorifying these people in our lives, trying to fix them. I got to have a relationship with them, and I struggle with that too. Listen, guys, I'm going to be personal with you here. One of my biggest issues coming out of the narcissistic abuse with in-laws is that I really honored that family because I thought I had to be a part of my wife's family. I thought I did. So I glorified that idea. And the whole time I felt this voice inside of me saying, "Kevin, I never called you to join that family. I called you to become a family. Period." Thus, the purging and the getting out of the toxic environment needed to happen so that I can get to that place where I then start to exalt and exalt, be joyful that I'm not a part of that family, and also give glory to where glory is due, not into the idea of that family. I hope that makes sense, guys. So I gave you a lot more information about the heart and the story behind that particular video, and I am interested, guys, to hear what you have to say right now. The phone line is open. Let me go ahead and get the phone number up there for you guys and see what's going on with you guys. And I'll go ahead and wait for some of you guys to go ahead and call. And while waiting for you guys to call, I'm also going to do my best to replace the camera here, the camera battery, that is. Not battery, the camera card. So what's going on with you guys? How is everybody? Can you guys see Can you guys see the telephone number? Is it going through? Here we go. We've got a telephone call. Let me go ahead and get you on. You are live on the Royal We. Thank you so much for calling. I am good. How are you?
Jen.
There you are. Oh, I couldn't hear you for a minute, so I'm glad I got you. Thank you so much. You're calling from Israel, and I'm glad you called.
Yeah,
You
how are
called.
you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I know that you called last week too. How are you? Did you like the video
I'm
this past
I
Friday?
love it. Yeah. Yeah, it really made me think about a lot of things, and what I was interested is if you can elaborate on the intervention of God um with Moses and Pharaoh. I actually like this part where you say that the more that Moses asked of Pharaoh to soften his heart and let the people go, he hardened his heart until God intervened, and that was missing for me. It kept me curious. So if
Right.
you can elaborate on that, that would be very interesting.
Elaborate on Moses. Yeah, absolutely. This is a theme that, and I'm trying to talk while I'm clearing some space here. One of the themes that we see throughout the Bible when it comes to dealing with these entities and these kings and these princes and these people in high places that God had established in high places, once they start to set in, and we also see this in the story of the king of Tyre. The king of Tyre is a very interesting story too. Just real quick, because what is happening in this scripture is God is talking to the king of Tyre, but he's also making references to Satan, to Hasatan, and he's having this dialogue where he's going back and forth saying, I created you. Well, you were beautiful, but because of the abundance of your trade, your heart began to become more proud and more proud and more proud. And you said in your heart, I will lift myself far above the throne of God. And as a result, God said, I cast you down, right? And so you can see how he's talking to the king of Tyre, but he's also making references to what happened with Satan. This is a typical thing. And so narcissism is that thing that we're talking about. Narcissism is that arrogance and that puffing up of pride and of proudness to the point where individuals believe they are their own gods. And this is what we deal with when we deal with abusive narcissists. They're not accountable to anybody. They don't, you won't. Now, there are narcissists who hide in the church, but still they don't keep themselves accountable. They operate according to their own will, their immovable will, unapologetic. They're going to go after what's theirs. They're in. How you can always tell is through the worldliness. How obsessed with the world and worldly things are they? And so when it comes to Moses and Pharaoh, now Pharaoh was the ruler of Egypt, okay, and Pharaoh is the title, and he was the ruler of Egypt over the mixed multitude that made up Israel. And Moses was the one to lead them out. Now, Moses had all kinds of dialogue going back and forth in his prayer life saying, I can't do this. I'm a single person. And he basically said, don't worry, I'm going to send this guy Aaron with you, one other guy, and he can do some talking for you too. And Moses, I believe, was still very unsettled. He was about to approach the Pharaoh, which the king of the land, and he knew already that Pharaoh's heart was in his worldliness, his worldly possessions, in the way he operated things. And so I know that he prayed the entire way. I hope this goes smooth. I'm supposed to save people from captivity. And what made it even weirder is that most of the people didn't even realize they were in captivity. They did, but they didn't. If you think about it, at the time, yes, they were slaves, but they were fed, and they were beaten, but they were
Yeah.
they were fed, and they had things to eat and drink. So it became their life. But Moses was given a different vision of them as being free people, right? And so he went to say, set the captives free. You're going to be a free people. You're going to be Israel. And And when he gets there and he approaches Pharaoh and they start talking about it, obviously Pharaoh's saying, no, it's not going to happen. His heart was hardened. No amount of prayer can do that. And it can soften that when you're getting into a situation where you're threatening to take something of somebody else. Okay. Narcissistically abusive people, when you start to approach them on changing their ways, they really feel threatened. They feel threatened that you're trying to take away from them, and you essentially are. When you start to get into, please stop cussing, please stop calling people names, please stop being mean, please treat people better. What you're really doing is you're taking away from them their first line of defense. You're threatening to take down their status of trying to be and present themselves as this great person. Okay. And so all of a sudden that will just shoots up. They want no part of it. They want no part of changing. And so, and it becomes this inner burning. And interesting, in the Bible, it says that, and this happened more than once, but it actually says that God hardens the heart even more. So the more you want to work something out with the other person, the more jealousy starts to fill, the more they feel threatened, the more their identity feels threatened, the way they like to operate, the more that feels threatened, the harder their heart becomes. Very, very interesting. And while we're on that, the same thing happened with Saul. The same thing happened with King Saul.
That's true.
And it, I
That's
didn't.
true.
It,
But eventually, God intervenes. Like with Egypt, with the story of the Exodus, He intervenes, and I don't know what it's called in English. Like when He hits them with the 10. Don't know the name of it in English. We call it makot, like
the plagues,
like hitting. Yeah, the plagues.
Right.
Yeah.
And well, but even
So
the even plagues,
that's a direct intervention.
it is,
sort of,
but it's not enough to change
like
narcissists. But it's not enough to change
No,
narcissists. And
it shows me that it's not really our job to even try.
exactly.
Because God has His ways to deal with it.
Exactly.
And I believe
yes.
they do get
They
very
do.
unfortunate. Yeah.
They absolutely do. One of the things, and this is why it was important to talk about the right way to pray towards narcissistic abuse, which used David as an example with Saul. Because the way he prayed took him out of the situation. First, he went no contact without even realizing it. He was actually purged into no contact, like many of us are. It gets so bad and so toxic in the situation that we have no choice but to run and to start over. It's a purging.
Yeah.
It's God's way of saying you're not supposed to be there. Not right now. You're not supposed to be there at all. So
yeah, you have to protect yourself.
You have to protect yourself. So David was sent running into isolation. He lived in a cave, for crying out loud, for a long time in isolation. I know a lot of people say, I have nowhere to go. I can't leave the situation. I have to put up with the abuse because I have nowhere to go. Listen, I know you may not be as young as David was, but you can go and find a place if it gets to that point. But he ran, he was out of there. So he was no contact. And then he stayed no contact. And all of the prayers that David offered up had to do with protection for him. He never once prayed for Saul. This is what I find so profound. He never prayed for Saul.
Oh,
you
yeah.
never hear David say, oh, please change his heart. Oh, please make him nicer. Oh, please. No. He said...
That's true. That's a really important point.
And his prayer was, search me. Make sure I have no part in doing something wrong. Search me. That's the prayer of vindication. Make sure I'm clean, right? Because a lot of us wonder, coming out of narcissistic abuse, are we the narcissists? Did we really do these things? Did we cause all this problem? So that's the prayer of vindication. Search me. Reveal to me if I'm really at fault here. Powerful prayer. And then the next
and
is...
also, I think it's very, very important that that's my personal experience, that I was so upset with God, and it drove me away from God for a while. And the prayer itself is a direct connection right back to God, because they sort of suck you into, they invite you to leave your integrity behind, to abandon the good, because you get sucked into all these dramas and all these
Right.
horrible situations, and you experience a lot of anger, which is I don't know, in Judaism we actually say that when you're angry, your spirit leaves you. So I don't know if in Christianity it's the same, but it's
No.
like you're not supposed to be angry, because there is no room for your spirit and anger and the
Right.
spirit of anger to exist in the same body. So when you're angry, your spirit actually leaves you. And that is something that I felt very deeply, because I felt so much anger. So you can't even
Right.
commune with God. You can't find this peaceful place inside
Right.
you, and the connection to the goodness of God, and that when you talk about the prayers of David,
Vindication. Prayer
yeah,
vindication solves that.
so
So if you're able to pray
yeah,
for vindication, search me. The very first thing, that's like one of the first prayers that David had. Some of the first Psalms that we have are search me. And I believe David was feeling that too. Maybe he had that anger. So he immediately combated that and said, no, I can't. Search me. Search my heart. Make sure I'm right. Then mercy, which again is towards David. And then protection, which again is towards David. All of his prayers were for himself. Guys, are you hearing this? The prayers need to be for yourself and your relationship with your higher power, right? And so David said, protection, deliverance, and then justice. I pray for, that's the only prayer that he prayed towards Saul was, you bring the justice, okay? And then last and not least, but the being joyful, having gratitude for your safety and what you have, and then also glorifying something else. These are important prayers that have nothing to do with changing the heart of somebody else, right? So, and
no, it's reconnecting
it's
to God
reconnecting.
again,
Yes.
and to your own destiny, and to
Yes.
what God wants for you. And I'll let you go with that to leave some room for other callers. And today I'll tell you that my name is Mookie.
Mookie.
And if you,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm Mookie. And you can also contact me if you need any help with Hebrew and
Thank you.
everything we spoke about before. So thank you very much. It's really interesting, and I'm going to continue listening. And God bless you.
Thank you so much for calling again. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye bye.
All right, the telephone line is back open, guys. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that call and elaborating even more and on the topic, especially for those of you who are believers. And I realize that you might not all have that same faith, and that's okay. We're not here to isolate anybody. We got a call from New York. You're live on the Royal We.
Hey, how's it going, Kevin?
Good. How are you?
Oh, just fantastic.
What's going on?
This is the husband of Katie, who called last week.
Oh, great.
And,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Katie.
Yeah, this is Adam. This is Adam and Katie and Adam.
Hey, Kevin.
How are you guys?
And yeah, we're just excited to get on the air and be able to get a hold of you and really kind of sort of almost continue this journey.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Now, with you two, it has to do with family, correct?
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. Only we were talking about my family last time when I called, and it's kind of funny the timing of things, because just as that was starting to, it's that wound is starting to heal, and I'm
Right.
starting to get used to this no contact thing. It opened up on Adam's side with his family, so.
Yeah, conveniently, right?
Yeah. No, that happens. Well, what's going on with your family? What's that relationship dynamic like?
So, coming off of Katie's family issues and, sort of getting those under control and setting our what's that called? Setting our boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
kind of getting that all sort of in order. We just starting to encounter like some oppression from like both of my parents. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of came in the shape of, just constant, checking up on me, like, I'm still living at home and, trying to get me to move back in. And, we were kind of just we watched a lot of your videos and like a lot of other ones, and it kind of, it signifies you got to leave and cleave, and, like form your own
Yes, you do.
family, and
Yes, you do.
you can't be a part of this gang mentality.
Yes.
Like it's just that it's like that stagnation, and you can't just sit around and let your mama do all the talking for you. You got to grow up and do your own thing.
Right. Yeah.
And it started to come around, and come Father's Day, just yesterday, and just or did you call your father yet? They're separated, but just rolling by the house, kind of, like just kind of lurking, waiting for me to do something, waiting for me to answer. And I kind of wanted to wait to get in touch with you to figure out, like, I'm trying to set a boundary. And, there's also some soul ties left at my mother's house, but things I should probably get rid of. I want to go through, both Katie and I have been rooting through all of our possessions, just getting rid of all of that.
Right.
That clutter, that extra, all those things that could have possible, strongholds, strong demonic strongholds attached to them that we wouldn't realize. And,
Right.
going through so much of that extra stuff kind of, just lifts that weight off of our shoulders once we realize, we go through our lives and just kind of cut all that extra nonsense out of it. And then,
Right.
I think it's high time to stop at my mom's and kind of just confront her about what she's been doing, and kind of just lay it out in front of her and be like, here's the boundaries, and just draw the line for her. And
Right.
it just seems like there's going to be no chance of anything beyond like no contact.
Let's talk a little bit about what are some of the things that are causing some of the discomfort. How are they at this point in time? And I noticed you're talking about setting boundaries. What exactly are you setting boundaries against? Where do you see the attacks taking place? What do you see happening from your parents?
Well, this all started. Okay, I can probably summarize this pretty quickly. I'm recovering alcoholic. Just Katie and I have been about a year sober, and
Congratulations, by the way, it's great.
Thank you. I'm so close to a year too. It's just amazing.
And by the way, I want to pause right here real quick, and I want to let people know, especially the viewers, right now, if you are an empathic individual, somebody who is loving and caring and trying to figure this out, and you struggle with alcohol and other addictions, the root of these addictions is from a result of a lot of trauma. It can be. All right. We know that narcissists themselves are highly addictive in a lot of ways, but it's not just narcissists. There are a lot of empathic people who become addicted as well, as a result of just not having an upbringing where they can turn to, where they can go to. And so you've probably had to find ways to stuff the pain and the things that you've had to deal with in life. And I am under the impression, because I worked with Celebrate Recovery, and I was a sponsor myself, and I am at the belief that at the core of all of the issues, codependency, alcoholism, sexual addiction, all these addictions, at the core of it is a very narcissistic surrounding around you throughout your life. A lot of it is trying to deal with and process and live in a narcissistic world with a narcissistic family that caused so much damage. And I wish that they would just open that up. And I mean, that's like they often say that when you go through your addictions, it's like peeling back layers. It gets stinkier as the deeper you get into it. Typically people go in and they are trying to recover from alcohol, but then they realize they have to go in and recover from sexual addiction as well. Then and it gets stinkier and nastier and nastier. But at the core, it's letting go of that trauma bond, that trauma, that traumatic wound of being raised, neglected, rejected, and mistreated, and overpowered by the narcissistic hierarchy, in a lot of ways, tyranny of families.
You're hitting like multiple nails on multiple heads. Like you're just like, you're laying like a rooftop down. Like you're nailing every shingle onto that roof. I'm like, I'm about to say these things, dude. Like
Yeah.
once that recovery kicked in, I can thank my wife Katie for getting me saved, bringing Jesus into my life, and like it's just been an amazing journey since that moment.
That's good.
And like
In
praying for all these things to be revealed to me, and like you're praying for it, and
right.
then the Lord pours it out, and okay, and now it's like it's go time,
Yeah.
and well,
Sure.
yeah, like getting to the root of all these issues, yeah, just like you were saying with all these addiction problems. And now it's like, what the root cause of it all is, if I had been like an alcoholic father, and, like your parents divorced when you were very young, and like
Yep.
all these, yeah, like you're saying, traumatic events in life.
Yeah.
And like just, how I've been treated by my mother, like my whole life, and, years and years and years.
Oh yeah.
And, being a youth sober, I was, drinking my life away, and working at a terrible like dead end job, and like they were seemingly pretty okay with that. Now come a year later, I'm making all these positive changes, and
they're not.
I'm kind of like throwing off this control. It's like I have one person to answer, or I have one Jesus is the boss. That's all I'm going to say.
Listen,
Jesus is the boss.
You're going to notice the biggest attack is you break more chains, right? Because you're freeing yourself. You're freeing yourself, and but this is your role. You're supposed to free yourself, right? You're a man, and this is your wife next to you. It's your wife next to you, and you're no longer apart, and you haven't been, right? When the Bible says, therefore, a man should leave his mom and his dad, and then cleave to his wife. And usually it's in that order. You first leave, separate from your parents. In my situation, I had no choice. When I was in my 20s, my mom was an alcoholic and out of the picture. My dad was out of the picture. I was left alone. So I had no choice but to leave prior to meeting, my wife. But in your situation, still you leave, right? And that leave means you're your own individual. You cut the ties with that family. You're no longer part of that family. We have been given such a false narrative in this world that you have to be connected to the hip with grandma and grandpa. And don't get me wrong, if people out there, if you have a good relationship with them, good for you, that's fine. But as long as you understand that you are to be your own family. And now understand also what it means when you have a family. This is what a lot of people miss. When you have kids, do you guys have kids?
No, not yet.
So when you have kids, and you're going to discover this, you're going to figure it out. I'm figuring it out right now because I have little ones. Somebody asked me, Kevin, you have a young boy and you have a daughter. What if one day they leave and you never see them again? Okay, meaning they grow up and they leave, and my response, I thought about it, tugged at my emotional strings a little bit, naturally, but then I realized something. Well, then I better hope I did a good job, because the role of a parent is the role of responsibility. That's it. The family is a job. It's a responsibility only for a certain limit of time, after which the kids move on. And they do and they start a family, and they fulfill the responsibility. But when it comes to unification, right? You're not you as a young man are not unified with your parents. This whole, blood is thicker than water and blah, blah, blah. This is the type of stuff that destroys marriages, because you have parents out there that feel that like they can weasel their way in to a marriage. They did this to me. My wife's family tried to get in there, make me out to be this horrible, bad person. And we love our daughter, but you Christian, you judgmental, rah, rah, rah. They weasel their way in there. This is what happens when you stay connected and too close to them. You're not unified with them. It's a gang. At that point, it becomes a gang. And I'm going to make a video talking about this. The family structure is really, the modern family structure is a gang. If you look at what the Bible lays out, it's a responsibility, right? The two become one flesh. The unification is husband and wife. You are joined, you and your wife. And you'll go through hard times. You'll go through good times. Promise you. But you are unified. That's a unification. That's marriage. You're not unified with your children. That's not unification. That's responsibility, but it's not unification. And then your kids go off and they become unified. And they inherit a responsibility, if God allows, to have kids, right? And it seems to me that if you look at the history of the Bible, that's the order. That's the way in which it goes. But if you try to take this whole family dynamic as this gang thing, this is where fights break out. This is where you have hierarchies. This is where you have golden children and you have scapegoats. This is where you even have brother versus brother, sister versus sister, kids against parents. It was like this from the beginning. Look at Cain and Abel. We really don't know how long Cain and Abel were, how old they were at the point in time. It didn't say they were young. It didn't say they were old, but it did say that they were still together with Adam and Eve, working together. And what happened? One killed the other. So what does that tell you about this whole families that stick together nonsense? And like I said, I'm not, if you do have a family, for those of you listening, if you have a family and you have a great relationship, that's good. But understand that's the exception, not the rule, right? So it's good for you and your wife for understanding that at this point in time, you are establishing your unification apart from whatever those attachments were. And it's a painful journey because you have to process on your own, just you and your wife, you have to process the pain of that detachment because it is a painful process. And it sounds to me like you guys have this foundation and this understanding, and that's going to get you through this, and it's going to unify you. It's going to be hard, but it will unify you even more.
I think we should just keep our bonds strong, with the Lord and us, just and like what Katie did with her parents. I think it's kind of come down to going no contact, and it's that's sort of the unfortunate realization. But that's it's really like ask me this question a year ago, would you even consider any of this? Like I'd be like laughing hysterically, like no, we all get along great. No, that's right. That's totally thrown to the wind now, and it's an amazing how that's all changed so quickly. Since bringing the Lord into my life, and just my personal relationship with Jesus. It's just trying to get others on the ark here. It's like, listen, this is free. This is a free gift for you, and
but understand,
you gotta realize the darkness hates the light.
Well, there you go, and you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
This is an issue, and you're discovering this, you and your wife, as believers, and this is something I had to discover too, right? Naturally, your light's going to start to shine. When your light shines, you're going to start to expose darkness. And when you start to expose darkness, it doesn't matter, mom, dad, brother, sister, whatever the case may be, they're going to fight you big time if they're not ready, right? That's what, the Bible doesn't necessarily just jump out and say that at you, but it's implied, right? A lamp on a hill can't be ignored. So in a lot of these situations, in these family situations, you're still going to be that light, but you're going to have to kind of be it from a distance. It's important not to be up in people's faces, especially when they're not ready, unless you're ready for an attack, unless you're ready to be fought, right? So these are important messages, I believe, for all Christians is to know, understand your light shines automatically. Listen, I couldn't get why I would walk into my wife's family's living room and I was getting looks of disgust and hatred just at my very presence, stepping in the door. Before anything came out of my mouth, I was rejected. And I'm like, what is going on? I've never, but understand, even your presence, them knowing that you go to church, you're part of a worship team, you're in recovery, you're helping people, you're healing people, you're exposing the darkness in your life. You can't help but just emit that. So you're going to walk in the room of people you love, and they're going to be hating on you. And they may be throwing dirt in your eye, calling up your past. They're going to use every tactic in the book. You used to do this, and you're like that, and you're no better than anybody else. And this is where all that comes from. And you're judgmental, and don't judge us, and don't bring your God around us, and blah, 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 blah. You're exposing them. You're exposing their weaknesses. So it's important to understand that as you carry this light with you as a family and as you go forward. And it's something I'm still learning too, is how to, that light's always going to shine, but it's not my job and role to be in everybody's face about it, even family, as much as we would like to. Family's often the first people we'd love to convert. Hey, mom, dad, look, check this out. Listen, everything's good and life's good. And they're just going to, they're going to, well, shut up. You're, you know what I mean? Right.
No different than, when I wasn't saved. Just, shut up.
Right. But good for you guys. I'm glad you guys called.
I was glad I was able to stay with you. And thanks so much, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. You have great advice, and it's
Thank
great
you.
to know that there's other people that get it.
Yeah. We're not alone either. It's just
No.
One of those places here something that you went through yourself. Yeah, man. It's like,
I wouldn't
get our spirits all polished up.
I would encourage you to go no contact. And this is the difference of the message of the royal we versus even what modern Christianity would teach, which is, well, no, just go and love them more. Go and love them. It's almost like they're telling you, go and get go and get attacked. Go and experience their brutality and their hatred, right? Go do that. And and I did enough of that. It actually separated me from the church and from for a while, and I was very upset with God. I didn't get it. I said, I was told that if I'm loving, then this, and I almost got this. What stopped the pain was this pat on my back. I left God. I turned my back for a period of time when I experienced this because I just didn't understand that level of hatred against my effort to love. I just didn't get it. But I got that pat on the back from God saying, congratulations, right? And I had my prayer life saying, congratulations for what? What? And you finally get the truth of the world you live in. I'm like, no, it's not true. Yes, it is true. This is why you are a light shining in a dark world. The truth is the world is not inherently good. Families are not inherently good. That is the false narrative that a lot of modern churches try to promote. Health, wealth, happiness, love, be your best, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is it's prosperity. Yeah, but the reality is the world is dark, man. It's very dark. Yeah. This is why we're here for a short time. This is why when Jesus was tempted by the devil, the last temptation, I talk about this, is the most profound temptation of Jesus. And this is where the devil takes him to a high point and says, do you see all the kingdoms of the earth? He showed all this area to Jesus. And the devil said, I will give it to you if you worship me. What's being implied here, right? Jesus' response was, no, you can't give me anything because it's already mine. No, he didn't say that because the devil's in part is right. So we have been told that we live on a world that's been put under the authority, at the very least, of a very evil entity. There's an authority there. The prince of the air, whatever you want to call it, the curse of the ground. And we live on it. We walk on it, and we're lights. Scary much? Little, but it's not supposed to be. We're supposed to find our strength and our understanding in the Lord. But it does not mean that we go looking for trouble, right? That's not what it's about. And so this is why we're not to go into these situations and say, hey, I'm here to convert you. And, hey, I'm going to pray because I believe that my prayer can take your will and change it. No, it doesn't work like that. Right? It doesn't work like that. So we're in a place and the royal we is in that place. We're regathering, regrouping, recommitting, re-understanding who we are, what's going on, right? And how to live. Yeah. How to live. So thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you back. And we'll be around, so hope to hear from you, and we'll definitely get on the Patreon train, and support this because this is a beautiful thing you have, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Right on, guys. Thank you for calling. Bye.
Yeah, God bless you, man.
Mm-hmm. Bye. Guys, I do encourage you. Thank you so much. I'm glad they said that at the end, too. I do encourage you to visit the Patreon page. The Patreon page is going to be down below in the description box. And that is the gathering. That's the membership. And you can become a member and join the gathering, which is going to be the next phase of the Royal We. And ultimately, with 300, I'm just looking for 300 uh, members to be able to go live every single night again, to start that back up, to move this into a full time. And then obviously, and you can see the tiers that I've set up and the goals that I set up during this next phase. And then with 1,000 members on the Royal We community, we will look into hiring 24-hour support for people who are coming out of narcissistic abuse. 24-hour support. And if that means helping people find a place to go, then that's what we do. And then beyond that, we get to 5,000 members or more. Now we're talking about, I don't know, traveling the world, having interviews and conversations. The ideas are so many. The dreams and the visions are many. But when we talk about a calling, and Patreon is where we're going to find the Royal We calling. I've had so many people on the Royal We channel say, do you know what your calling is? Do you understand? Are you sure you understand? And I'm going to say this. The Patreon account is the calling. I want to give you guys, I had a meeting with a friend of mine, who's a new friend of mine, who's a pastor. And I was sharing with him how I go about. Guys, I'm actually going to have to cut this short because I'm about to run out of battery. So I'm going to go ahead and end this, guys. All right, guys, I'm sorry I got to cut it short, but I will continue with you on next Monday. All right? I promise. I'm sorry about this. Technical. We will get through this. I promise you. Thank you for watching the Royal We. Check out Patreon. The link is down below. Bye, guys.